just watched Monday's topic about if someone's born a certain way, and it reminded me of February's discourse. You quote tweeted on how people would be bi if no externalities. Yeah, I do think that, like, there are a lot of there's a lot of anthropological evidence to suggest that, like, absent any social influence, most people would be at least leaning bi, and most people wouldn't be monogamous either. Like, people seem to fuck around a lot more freely in societies that hadn't yet developed, like, modern standards of property ownership and acquisition. But none of that is meant to be prescriptive. The thing that pisses me off is that if I say naturally people kind of lean towards bi and being non-monogamous, what people then interpret that as, because they're stupid, is that people should be those things, which is not the fuck what I am saying. You can be whatever. I'm just saying, like, I think that absent social influence, you might have people acting a different way. Keep in mind, absent social influence, we'd probably be, like, murdering and raping more often, right? Like, social influence discourages that behavior, which is good. It's not a moral statement. I do think that a lot of our, like, the hegemony of heterosexuality is to an extent socially imposed. But it bothers me when people look at any kind of, like, argument about, or at least acknowledgement of, like, a natural state, and they take that as a moral one. Like, naturally, we would shit in the woods and probably didn't wipe that good. But you know, I'm a bidet enjoyer these days. You know, it's not a moral argument. If the government can negotiate down prices, why not negotiate up prices for rich people and ban loans for them, so even without taking their money, it still circulates? Hey, listen, okay? Every commodity you buy actually is just a percent of your net wealth. Wealthy guy goes down to the store to buy an apple. Oh, that's a $500 apple for you, sir. Yeah, fuck yeah. Every red light's $1,000. Isn't it like that in Norway or something? Where speeding tickets are proportioned to your income? There used to be this trans woman geneticist that invented an injection to make testicles produce estrogen, and it worked. No idea where she is now. I have never heard of that. That sounds insane. I've never heard that. I would have to look at that. Working honestly helps with my mental health more than I thought. Was a SHAM, stay-at-home mom, for 13 years and depressed for most of it. Now I buy for myself again, wear makeup and take care of my skin and not watching the news. Yeah, I really do think, and people get mad at me with this because a bunch of my community is 16-year-old anarchists. I really do think that work can be liberatory, you know? I think that people like a bit of structure in their day-to-day, whether it be something like child rearing or something like farming or having a job, schedule, responsibility, and independence. I think people like these things, you know? I think the problem is that as a consequence of our culture, very unnecessarily, work is fucking miserable. It doesn't have to be that way, you know? Do you think if any time an interviewer asks a politician how they would address high crime, they just pull up stats showing it's low would be received well? I just wonder about that. No, because that would be perceived as defensiveness from the politician. What we need are responsible interviewers who are honest to the audience about crime, saying, like, crime is far lower than it was in the 1990s, yet people are more worried about it than ever. What would you do to address that? I think that would be a good tee-up. Unfortunately, because people are fucking retarded, if you, the politician, respond with, well, crime's lower than it has been in decades, people will accuse you of being like, they'll be like, well, what about this one girl who got shot? Okay, well, like 20 girls got shot last year. You think the one girl getting shot is good. You think it's good she got shot. People are very stupid. Do you think we Americans of Mexican origin have enjoyed / cooked rice and beans our whole life will have an advantage in the coming apocalypse over the white boys? Unironically, yes. I think that Mexican food is easily the goated top tier post-economic collapse food because it's delicious, it's cheap, it's made with, like, literally every Mexican meal is make some kind of, like, slurry of rice, beans, and protein, and then put it in, like, some kind of breading. Tacos, burritos, quesadillas, fucking quesadillas, not Tostinos. What's the one where they're really skinny? Skinny little burritos with the open ends. Enchiladas, come on. Taquitos. Thank you. Yeah. Flautas. Yeah, you've got this shit. You've got this. Everything you're saying about rural America is true. Absolutely true. I've lived here my whole life. I know what people talk about. People here suck. Permanent chips on their shoulder. Always with this fucking whiny, like the city folk look down on us for being objectively worse than them. Rode with an Iranian Uber. He said something along the lines of, Iran has never invaded another country, and I looked it up, and it's basically true. They haven't since the Persian Empire, as well as the defensive military doctrine. Yeah, but they get around that by funding Islamic militias in other countries who then do the antagonism for them. It's just like, okay, technically, Iran plays it defensive, but in practice, a huge amount of their money and weapons get siphoned out into proxy armies that they, you know, you don't move to rural America, you end up living in rural America. Big difference. There's a reason why poor people in rural areas move to cities and then never regret that choice. But the only people who move from cities to rural areas are rich people who like doing farmer cosplay. Every time you see an influencer who's doing this, like, excuse me, enlightened men of the West, why do you not simply live out on a homestead like us? And then you look into it and they like made their millions with like a Bitcoin rug pull 2 years ago, and now they're just checking out of society and like living off the interest. They're not making money. They're not doing anything. They just like the aesthetic, you know? Yeah, they want to live like a rural aristocrat. They want to live like a genteel plantation owner. They don't want to farm. Do you think there's value in messaging to young men saying one mistake shouldn't ruin your life either, in favor of abortion or free childcare? No. The reason young men oppose abortion is because they think that women are being slutty and they want to punish women for being sluts, having sex with men who aren't them. Nobody, like, men are not motivated to vote on the abortion issue out of any kind of like reasonable self-interest. I've suffered from depression for 3 years. 9 months ago, I took psilocybin once because John Oliver said it works, and all the sadness left instantly. Love the stream. This is not medical advice. I have heard that psilocybin can do a lot to restructure the brain when it comes to some, you know, like dopamine reception type stuff. What's psilocybin? Psilocybin's mushrooms. That's crazy. Yeah, it can also fuck you up big time, I've heard. I can't. I'm not a. You know, I'm not a doctor. I have heard a lot of people say that it can work, but if anyone was interested in it, I would recommend like an enormous amount of research, you know? An enormous amount of research before you even consider it. And then you should decide against it because they're federally illegal. And you should never break the law. Thank you. Thank you, Demetrius. Speaking of drugs, a decade ago I used kratom to get clean from opiates. Now Louisiana banned and criminalized it. I'm probably never visiting my family there again because of it. Kratom, what is that? Kratom produces stimulant effects. Evergreen tree of the Rubicaceae family, native to Southeast Asia, indigenous to a bunch of countries where you wear shorts even when you're in the military. Herbal medicine, 19th century. Okay, I don't know shit about this thing. Yeah, you boof it? Hell yeah. You shove it up your ass? Hell yeah, brother. I mean, you can. You do not boof it? Oh, okay, never mind. I'm happy that it worked for you. Louisiana's a shithole anyway. I live in a smaller town, so I can say the rural-urban divide is real, and there's a mini version here. There's small towns, and then there's empty space with Hitlerites. Yep. Cheeky Licks the 5. I think rural voters aren't naturally right-wing. They were the backbones of communists and populists during or before Depression. We just need propaganda. Yeah, no, I don't think anyone is naturally anything. But no, like, there is no denying the fact that, like, rural America... Like, does anyone else think it's weird when on Twitter somebody will say, like, fuck these redneck country music listening pieces of shit, and then somebody will be like, dude, real rednecks hate the cops. No, they fucking don't. It's always these, like, lefty 19-year-olds who live in Portland where they're like romanticizing this like noble savage redneck like out of the 1960s or something. They're like, oh yeah, fake rednecks like pickup trucks and cops, but real rednecks like this one black and white photo of like a folk country singer from the 60s with the guitar, "This machine kills fascists." That's what real country is. Never mind the fact that nobody listens to that anymore. And pop country is by far the, like, overwhelmingly popular country genre. It's stolen valor. It ain't valor anymore. That fight's over. The rednecks, the country hicks, whatever, they're all Hitlerites. It's been like that for decades. Am I hallucinating, or did you make merch before? Can you do it again? Yeah, the difficulty with making merch now is just that my standards are a lot higher. I wouldn't want to just put out like a regular t-shirt blank made in the Philippines with like a logo on it or something, you know? I would want to do something innovative. I would want to do something like cool and transformative. You know, unfortunately, the standards have raised. America, it doesn't have to be an American-made blank, because I'm not actually super committed to like everything being made in America. I think it's good when it is. I want stuff to be made ethically, but I don't think it's innately wrong for something to be produced in a different country. Ethically is when made here by our slaves. Yeah, you know, it's, the ethical production's what I care about most. Yeah, I'd have to think about it. Also, it would be like a little more pricey, obviously. I put in a t-shirt order like a year ago, dude. Was there a t-shirt order missed? Look, if there was anything missed or whatever, that might have just fallen through the cracks. You got to get that shit refunded, man. The process for distributing that stuff, I haven't like I haven't looked over it in a long time, because I keep thinking in my head like, I'm gonna try it this again. I'm gonna make like a cool new merch thing, you know? But it has to be cool. Not that I don't like my current shirt. Just keep that in mind. You understand. Politics is dumb. Graphics really suck. All right, take your 1 minute mute.